Greetings! Welcome to another episode of Porygondolier. Today's installment is Solo Volo Episode 2, Ducks the Disobedient. This Farfetch'd was traded to me by the professor just after getting my starter, and gave me a pretty tough time in the first half of its solo playthrough. Today, I'll be punishing its disobedience by making it fight Volo all by itself. And you might be thinking, but Mr. Poryman, you already have all 8 badges, so why is this episode called Ducks the Disobedient? Well, let's just say that Ducks will be going on a little journey today, in what can only be described as a tangent. But more on that later. First of all, as always, Ducks will face Volo with its post-league moves and stats, and I also need to find somewhere to roll the intro. Right, having arrived at the museum, let's go and see Mr. Volo. Spiritomb being a ghosty, Slash is out of bounds. We do have Fly, but I'm starting off with its Sand Attack. But Spiritomb decides it's bedtime, and while Sand Attack helps a little bit, I'll cut to the chase. Sometimes, Spiritomb just refuses to lose. It doesn't really matter how much you power up your duck or non-duck Pokemon, unless you can stop Spiritomb in one, it's always possible to lose here. So I'll put that down to bad luck, or bad Spiritomb, and give it another go. This time I go straight for Fly, which misses, and Spiritomb makes a wavy pattern on the screen. Determined to find out how good Fly is, Ducks once again takes to the sky. And well, 3 shots to KO? Ultimately, Ducks can win this battle, but not without taking a great deal of damage. Roserade, on the other hand, is weak to Fly, so no trouble here. And for Togekiss, well, obviously Ducks isn't getting through here, but let's have a look at Slash. Okay, and that's the end of that. Right, let's have a looky-see at Ducks' moves. Slash is probably not going to be very useful. It can't hit ghosts, and because it crits so much, it doesn't pair well with Swords Dance. If we take a look at its move list, there's not much here worth taking instead, so I'll take Mimic and maybe borrow one of Volo's moves. Now I also want something for recovery. The only choice is Rest, which we can get by surfing on this man and discovering that the SSN has come back. So we already know Fly takes 3 shots here, and the first Swords Dance basically doubles Ducks' attack, so there's really no reason not to. Not too worried about taking damage here, just as long as we can make it through. Now we can use Rest, with the main downside being all the sleeping that happens. Roserade uses Poison Jab on repeat. Due to the AI, it won't use any other moves, and this quickly starts to look like a not so great place to rest. The backwards and forwards goes on for quite some time, with my hope being that Roserade will chill out on the crits and let me use Swords Dance. Finally that does happen, but this really wasn't ideal. I still have one more Swords Dance to use, and I figure it's all or nothing, and thankfully Togekiss seems to agree that turn 1 is for powering up. Ducks flies into the air and smashes into its opponent with the power of 100 ducks. Now I brought Mimic because I figured we need Harkonine's own Rock Slide to take it down, but the Fire Doggy also thinks that rocks are the way to go. I keep trying like this for a while, but it's very much not working. To avoid Ducks becoming disheartened, I let it annihilate the Pokemon League. This boosts its morale and also its stats. I then spend a little time getting items in the power plant, show Zapdos up, and grab some PP ups and whatnot. I try the battle many more times, but it's really hard going. It's by pure chance that Arcanine misses a Rock Slide, allowing us to meet Lucario. Lucario itself is not terribly fond of being flied into, and here's Volo's final Pokemon. This is usually an important time to heal up, but I can't see Garchomp letting that happen, so I go for Fly. And with Volo's main team out of the way, all that's left is Giratina, the lord of the distortion world that is filled with terrible might. As it turns out, Giratina has a very troublesome move called Aura Sphere, a fighting type move that never misses, and in Gen 1, that means it even hits when using Fly. To make matters worse, it turns out that Giratina thinks Aura Sphere is super effective. In actual fact, both Aura Sphere and Dragon Claw do neutral damage to Ducks, but the game sees normal type and draws an early conclusion. Funnily enough, the very same game tells us that Aura Sphere is not very effective. You've got to love Gen 1. So here's the situation. The only move we have for Giratina is Fly. Fly takes 2 turns, and Giratina will land an Aura Sphere on every single turn. That means Fly's power of 70 just got effectively halved, making it slightly worse than Peck. Fly is still better than Peck for the rest of the fight though, and Ducks can't learn any other moves that can hit Giratina. Unless of course we start messing around with Toxic or do something with Mimic. I'll come back to why Mimic doesn't work in a little bit. But first, a little experiment. So far, it's been pretty tricky to make good use of rest. Giving the opponent 3 free shots is a pretty inefficient way to recoup HP. But by coupling this move with Sand Attack, hopefully we can see some better results. So what I'm doing here is powering up to maximum Swords Dance and repairing the damage through Sand Attack and Rest. It's a pretty slow strategy and relies on a bit of luck, but crucially, it does seem to be working. Now we can one-shot Roserade and the same for Togekiss. Even with maxed out attack, Fly is unable to take down Arcanine, but thankfully, Rock Slide misses again. Lucario and Garchomp are both one-shots too, so let's have a look at Giratina. Now the trouble with Sand Attack is that it won't work on Aura Sphere. When we say it's a move that always hits, we're not saying it's 100% accurate, we're saying it bypasses accuracy checks altogether. So while Sand Attack is great for the main battle, it's useless here. But having come this far, we can get a feel for how much damage Aura Sphere is doing. That was 66, so slightly more than a quarter. Which is a problem, because a quarter is exactly how much HP a Substitute has. The idea behind Substitute is twofold. In the main battle, if the Substitute can be a punching bag for more than one move, Ducks will have more chance to rest, and when we get to Giratina, I think it can help with Aura Sphere. With 92 HP left, this is a good time to make a plushie, and Togekiss is often keen to spam Calm Mind. By the time our Substitute is broken, Ducks has woken up. I already used triple Swords Dance against Spiritomb, so the rest of the fight is alright. Even Rock Slide is somewhat bearable. Some flying later, we're back to Giratina. Now what I need to do is use Swords Dance to get a little boost on defense, allowing the Substitute to tank 1 Aura Sphere, but I blunder and choose Substitute first. Giratina outspeeds, and Ducks has too little HP to make the Substitute. Being outsped makes this strategy a little cumbersome, as Ducks will need to take 2 Aura Spheres and still have enough leak power to make merch. No, I can't see this working at all, so it's time for another trip through the Pokemon League. The goal here is to get enough defense and HP that Aura Sphere does less than a quarter, and after Ducks becomes the Duck Master for the 3rd time... never mind. After Ducks defeats this random Goldeen, it reaches level 93. Now before I try with Substitute, I want to quickly show why Mimic doesn't work, because in theory, we can mimic Dragon Claw, which ought to do more damage than Fly. So here's a pretty ideal case. We've copied Dragon Claw, rested up, and being clobbered by 2 non-critical Aura Spheres. 1 more Aura Sphere makes 3, and this is Dragon Claw. Not great. Now we have to take another Aura Sphere while waiting to rest. And yes, we can now just barely take 4 shots, but that's if there are no crits at all. I'd need to go through this sequence probably 10 times, meaning Giratina has to have a no crit streak of 40. There's absolutely no way. Anyway, Substitute. Again, I use Togekiss as a rest stop and get full HP, and our newly powered up Duck is now able to one-shot the dog. This means we reach Giratina in perfect health. Substitute straight away, and now I can go for Swords Dance. Substitute withstands Aura Sphere, and this looks like it might work. And the thing is, it does. By cycling through Substitute, Rest and Swords Dance, Duck slowly builds up to max attack. Now we swap out Swords Dance for Fly and continue to struggle through. 15 in-game minutes pass, and Giratina is taken down. And of course it gets back up, and a further 8 minutes later, it is defeated. Cause for celebration? I think not. This is Ducks, a Pokemon I have so much nostalgia for, I actually did a solo run that wasn't a backport. This is simply not good enough. It left me with this empty feeling that I can only describe as dissatisfaction. I want Ducks to show Volo who's boss, not flap around for 23 minutes and just about squeeze through. If only there was a way to unlock our Duck's hidden potential. If only Game Freak had given Cantonian Farfetch'd the same treatment granted to its Galarian counterpart. Well, dear viewer, have you ever heard of a game called Pokemon Gold? No, not that one. This one. The 1997 Space World demo of Pokemon Gold. I had the idea to send Ducks on a little trip to this game, but unfortunately, the time capsule is not up and running in the demo. Enter Pokemon Gold 97 Reforged, a ROM hack by SoupPotato that aims to give us the experience of playing a completed version of the Space World demo. I begin the game in Silent Town, name my mum, and grab my starter Betamon called Cruz. There's a Pokemon Center here, so I try to use the time capsule, but it doesn't seem to be working yet. I make my way to a place called Silent Hills and catch a Weedle. A while later, Cruz faints from poison, and apparently this also affects my vision. After leaving Silent Hills, I meet a trainer with a Tang Trip. Look at this little guy. How could you scrap this and keep Magby? I then reach Pagoda City, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, and the time capsule still isn't working. All I can really do is keep going. I soon discover that the gym leader, a guy named Faulkner, won't fight me until I prove my mettle, so I pay a visit to the Brass Tower. But first, I swing by the building next door where this fellow wants to see a Farfetch'd. It saddens me that I can't help, but it's nice to know that Ducks is also popular with NPCs. Once in the Brass Tower, I meet a sage who seems harmless at first, but comes equipped with Mystery Grass. Cruz does not like Mystery Grass, but Weedle steps up to take its place. Sadly though, we're unable to beat this baby slime. I catch a good boy and make my way through the tower. Upon reaching the top, there's no final battle, I simply receive the Elder's Blessing, which is apparently good enough for Faulkner. Faulkner, like his non-beta counterpart, uses birds. This battle gives me quite a lot of trouble. I wish I could use my bird. Eventually though, Puddypop burns through his Pidgeotto and we get the first badge. A man of science gives me a suspicious egg and suggests I go to see Bill, who's apparently arrived in town. Bill is indeed in town, and this interaction seems to have activated the time capsule. And now it's time for Ducks' grand adventure to Generation 1.5. The trade completes without a hitch, and Ducks is looking very handsome with its lovely green leek. I now need Ducks to level up, but there is one little problem. It needs more than 23,000 EXP, which in this early part of the game is a lot. And due to Ducks being way above the obedience level cap, it's utterly useless in battles. But not to worry, I figure all I need to do is find a rare candy, so I continue to play the game and bring Ducks along for the ride. This is Route 103. I think this may be the most visually appealing route I've ever seen in a Pokemon game. It's just delightful. I battle Birdkeeper Brian, and after Cruz just barely manages to push past his Pidgey, he sends out his very own Ducks, which destroys Tom and forces me to use my Ducks. This fight looks to be stacked against me. I have a 77 level advantage, but Ducks, my Ducks that is, just isn't interested. Eventually I do coax it into the air with a stale piece of bread, and it manages to get me the win. 481 EXP. Not bad. Without going into every small detail of this run, things continue like this for a while. Not a short while either. I'm partially convinced this game doesn't have rare candies. Here I am nearly 7 hours in, and I've just got the 4th badge. This means Pokemon level 50 and up will now obey me. Because of how obedience works, this does actually make Ducks a little more agreeable. But battles are still really tough. Come on, Ducks! Over 8 hours into the game, I give up on the idea of rare candies and devote myself to winning battles on Boardwalk. I largely do this by switch training Ducks and having Tom and the crew do the heavy lifting, but Ducks does win some battles for itself, including against this Poliwag, which finally causes it to level up. What? Ducks is evolving? Marvellous. Ducks, nay, Super Ducks, now needs to go back to Gen 1, and this is quite possibly the most difficult part. Adding Madam to Gen 1 is easy enough, but convincing Reforged to let me send it is problematic. Of course, I considered this in advance, and I was somewhat aware of something called the Johto Guard glitch, also known as the Time Capsule exploit. This is a little trick that can be used to allow you to send Gen 2 Pokemon back to Gen 1. Normally they'd appear as missing no, but if I get it right, the receiving end, that is Pokemon Red, shouldn't be a problem. The way it works is this: we have to have a Glitchmon called FF. FF has the special ability to hide Pokemon below it in the party from the Time Capsule check. In the normal Gen 2 games, you can do glitchy things at the daycare and get yourself an FF, but I figure it'd be easier to catch one in Gen 1 and send it over. Use that to mask Ducks and safely transport it back to Gen 1. So I add FF to the Route 1 encounters and try my luck. And this battle turns out to be the shortest Pokemon battle ever. I try again, but it's simply not having it. I gather there's another way to get FF by getting a different Glitchmon, 00, first, so I try the same with that. This battle seems to work okay. I catch it in an Ultra Ball, but it turns out it was a Rhydon. The battle then just continues for some reason, so I decide to send in my brand new Rhydon. Eventually, I catch A''M again, and this one turns into Ditto. The battle now ends, and I didn't get what I want, but I did catch 2 Pokemon in one battle, so that's pretty cool. And yes, I am so far away from the topic of Ducks vs Volo now, but I assure you, we are getting there soon. I try catching another 00, I'm not sure if this is because my party is full, but this time it seems to be a success. I withdraw it from Bill's PC and connect up the link cable. Sadly though, the game is on to me, and the trade cannot be completed. I'm starting to run out of ideas. What if Ducks is stuck in the Nihon region for the rest of time? But then, I remembered something. This channel is all about ducks, boats and mushrooms. Of course! ROM hacking a ROM hack. That sounds like something I could do. Thankfully, SoupPotato put the files for Reforged up on the interweb, and by removing one line of code, the time capsule should now let me send any Pokemon I like. Once again, I hook up my virtual link cable and attempt to make a trade. This time I get through the door no problem, but I'm very aware that everything about this trade is just wrong. The trade begins and Weedle makes its way back to Reforged. Madam Ducks enters its ball and the ball goes into the tube. Or link cable, I'm not entirely sure. I do love the trade sequence though. Ducks successfully returns to Gen 1 and now it's time to get back to the video. Oops, I should probably change Route 1 back. Whoa, this is cool. Look at him go. These guys know how to throw a party. You again? Face me in battle! Ducks Disobedient no more creates a substitute and begins to sharpen its wings. Spiritomb sees what I'm doing and starts to get scared. It spams Hypnosis in a desperate attempt to prevent the inevitable, and after 3 tries, it successfully puts Ducks to sleep. But our attack stat has already reached the biggest number in the world, and just to flex on Spiritomb, Ducks decides to stay asleep for a grand total of 6 turns. Ducks flies into the air and Spiritomb is crushed. Roserade meets the same fate, and Ducks takes a slightly more intentional nap while fighting Togekiss. Our opponent calms its mind twice and fires off a double power Moonblast. Does Ducks look bothered? I don't think it looks bothered. Even the Fire Rock Doggy, who resists flying type moves, has no idea what hit it. Our first fly on Lucario misses, and it steals its resolve twice with Bulk Up. So double defense? Is that going to be a problem? Absolutely not. And Garchomp. Giratina strike him down, Gigo Gago Gwoo. Straight away, Dux comfortably outspeeds Giratina and performs its Swords Dance. Giratina retaliates with Aura Sphere, and Dux isn't sure whether to laugh or comfort Giratina with a hug. In the end, it settles on more dancing. I've decided that in order to minimise cowardly strategies and maximise satisfaction, Dux will not be using Substitute against Giratina. Rest, however, is fine. Taking a nap while the devil fires spirit bombs at you is about as hardcore as you can get. With a kind of smug and confident yawn, Dux takes to the sky and an Aura Sphere follows it up. Fly connects, and the damage is absolutely incredible. Now Dux probably should rest, but I think it's more fun to keep fighting. The second fly lands, and Giratina unleashes its true power, which incidentally has a little more attack, but a little less defense. With that said, could we? Could we just maybe? Yes, we can! That's what I'm talking about. A fitting victory for Dux the Madam. Now then, I said last time that I'd be bringing back each of my solo run Pokemon one at a time in order to face Volo, which means that our next episode would be unknown. But I also said that if Lugia the Lonely gets 46 likes, I'd do Paris. And since I'm not really sure what to do about Unknown yet, our next challenger will be Paris. If it's already out, the video should be on your screen now. And as always, I'd like to wish you a wonderful day, and I look forward to welcoming you back to another video soon. For now, bye!